All right. Good day, students. I am recording this on my laptop, so hopefully sound quality and video quality aren't sacrificed too much. I'm still waiting on that microphone to come in. But I really wanted to sink into a longer one today, and I did not want to wait. So we're going to dig into a story from Bullfinch's mythology. Um, a lot of the stories in here are the language that they're written in is going to be a lot denser. Um, they're going to be pretty raw and archaic. So it might be a bit longer of a story, but I hope everyone is okay with that. And if you're looking for a good story, I hope that you enjoy it. Before I sink into that, though, I wanted to real quick talk about book suggestions. Now, when I was about your age, or probably the age of the audience that these videos are intended for, I loved mythology. I would read, I would watch, I would just absorb as much of it as I possibly could from just about any sources that I could. But I also love fiction, and fiction comes from mythology, really. It comes from the oral tradition. It's storytelling, and it's storytelling so loosely based on a moral or perhaps something that was true at one point in time that it no longer resembles anything real. Um, and what's great is that there is fiction stories based around mythology itself and mythological characters. Real quick, so I wanted to suggest if you're bored and you're looking for something to do, then you should absolutely sink in to Mary Renault's stories. This is Mary Renault's The King Must Die, and this was one of my favorite books when I was a young teen. A lot of her stories were some of my favorite stories to read, and this follows Theseus, a mythological Greco-Roman hero who slew monsters, abducted princesses, became the king of Athens. This is just really good stuff and really fun reading. And students, if you're watching this, reach out to me because I have a lot of these books and I would gladly just give you a copy. Um, if it meant that it's going to keep you entertained, as they kept me entertained so many years ago. So please don't hesitate to do that if it's something that you're interested in, because I'll gladly give it to you. So, anyways, that's enough of that. I'm going to pick a story from Bullfinch's mythology and dive into it. So I do love this book because it just has so much. We have gods and heroes from Greek, we have gods and heroes from Norse, we have King Arthur and his knights, we have British hero myths, we have the legends of Charlemagne. There is just a lot going on in Bullfinch's mythology. Um, hmm, Trying to find one that's going to be a bit longer, but perhaps not too much longer. Let's sink into Beowulf. Beowulf is under the hero myths of the British race. That's going to be all the way back on page 635. And I might just give it a quick minute because it sounds like the city is doing some street cleaning, and I am outside. Quick sip of my coffee. Here we go. Notable among the names of heroes of the British race is that of Beowulf, which appeals to all English-speaking people in a very special way, since he is the one hero in whose story we may see the ideals of our home to come across to the Isles of the British. Wow, I already slaughtered that passage. 1 second. Let's restart. Still paying too much attention to the street sweeper. Notable among the names of heroes of the British race is that of Beowulf, which appeals to all English-speaking people in a very special way, since he is the one hero in whose story we may see the ideals of our English forefathers before they left their continental home to cross to the islands of Britain. Although this hero had distinguished himself by numerous feats of strength during his boyhood and early youth, it was at the deliverer of Hrothgar, King of Denmark, from the monster Grendel that he first gained wide renown. Grendel was half monster and half man, and his abode in the fen fastness in the vicinity of Hrothgar's residence. Night after night he would steal into the king's great palace called Heorot, and slay sometimes as many as 30 at one time of the knights sleeping there. Beowulf put himself at the head of a selected band of warriors, went against that monster, and after a terrible fight, slew it. The following night Grendel's mother, a fiend scarcely less terrible than her son, carried off one of Hrothgar's boldest thanes. Once more Beowulf went to the help of the Danish king, followed the she-monster to her lair at the bottom of a muddy lake in the midst of the swamp, and with his good sword, Hrunting, and his own muscular arms, broke the sea-woman's neck. Upon his return to his own country of the Geats, loaded with honors bestowed upon him by Hrothgar, Beowulf served the king of Geatland as the latter's most trusted counselor and champion. When, after many years, the king fell before an enemy, the Geats unanimously chose Beowulf for their new king. His fame as a warrior kept his country free from invasion, and his wisdom as a statesman increased its prosperity and happiness. In the 50th year of Beowulf's reign, however, a great terror fell upon the land in the way of a monstrous fire dragon, which flew north by night from its den in the rocks, lighting up the blackness with its blazing breath, and burning houses and homesteads, men and cattle, with the flames from its mouth. When the news came to Beowulf that his people were suffering and dying, and that no warrior dared to risk his life in an effort to deliver the country from this deadly devastation, the aged king took up his shield and sword, and went forth to his last fight. At the entrance of the dragon's cave, Beowulf raised his voice, and shouted in furious defiance to the awesome guardian of the den. Roaring hideously, and flapping his glowing wings together, the dragon rushed forth and half flew, half sprang on Beowulf. Then began a fearful combat, which ended in Beowulf's piercing the dragon's scaly armor, and inflicting a mortal wound, but alas, in himself being given a gash in the neck by his opponent's poisoned fangs, which resulted in his death. As he lay stretched on the ground, his head supported by Wiglaf, an honored warrior who helped in the fight with the dragon, Beowulf roused himself to say, as he grasped Wiglaf's hand, "Thou must now look to the needs of the nation. Here dwell I no longer, for destiny calleth me. Bid thou my warriors, after my funeral pyre, build me a burial cairn high on the sea cliff's head, so that the seafarers Beowulf's Barrow henceforth shall name it. They who drove far and wide over the mighty flood their foamy keels. Thou art the last of all, the kindred of Wagmund. Wyrd has swept all my kin, all the brave chiefs away. Now must I follow them." These last words spoken, the king of the Geats, brave to seek danger and brave to look on death and fate undaunted, fell back dead. According to his last desires, his followers gathered wood and piled it on the cliff head. Upon his funeral pyre was laid Beowulf's body, and consumed to the ashes. Then, upon the same cliff of Hronesness, was erected a huge burial cairn, widespread and lofty, to be known thereafter as Beowulf's Barrow. So, that one really wasn't too long, and really not as dense as I was expecting from this book in particular. But goodness, reading that, it really just made me think of a video game, honestly. Skyrim, other fantasy games, Dragon's Dogma, and you can see how much ancient folklore and literature like that, written eons ago, has influenced modern day stories, modern day fantasy stories, to such a degree that there's really not a whole lot separating them to this day. This was Beowulf in particular is really the genesis of a lot of fantasy tropes that we keep with us today. So, anyways, I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hoped that the street cleaner in the background was not too distracting from the tale. I will try to get to some more later on, and well, for now, that's all I got. Okay, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay in the pursuit of knowledge. Bye bye, students.